Welcome. And the question today from Throwaway121270 is, what is the greatest? F it. I'll do it myself in history. Hi, this is Derek. I just put the Drama Llama, Fred, back in his llama pen, so that I can do this quick video for you with some of the stuff that Fred found on Reddit earlier today. If this is your first time watching our videos, help me out by watching to the end, and then giving me some feedback in the comment area below. And if you want more of these videos daily, don't forget to like and subscribe, with notifications turned on for this channel. Oh boy, let's get ready for some drama. Bruce Joel 99 answered with, Juan Pujol Garcia was a Spaniard who created his own counterintelligence operation for the Allies during World War II. Initially, he approached British and American intelligence to offer them his services. But both countries rebuffed him. Undeterred, Garcia created a fictional persona as a pro-fascist Spanish official and got himself recruited by the Nazis, who directed him to travel to Britain to recruit agents. Instead, Garcia created a network of fictitious agents and sub-agents, using publicly available information like newspapers and travel brochures. It was at this point that he again contacted Allied intelligence, and he was finally recruited. Garcia continued his work throughout the war, and for the same operation, he received both a knighthood from the British and the Iron Cross from Nazi Germany. The Nazis never realized that he was a double agent. Yes, in the lead up to Overlord he confirmed reports that the Allied attack would come from Dover and wouldn't attack Normandy. Then, at the last moment he confirmed that the Allies in fact would attack Normandy. But it was too late for the Nazis to act on it. So afterwards the Nazis still trusted him, as they would point to him and say he was the only one who predicted the Normandy invasion. It was technical issues, as always, that meant that data got to us late. Anonymous answered with, in 1947 a guy named Thor Heyerdahl was trying to prove his theory that the Polynesian islands were settled by people from South America, not Asia. Nobody believed him because it was thought that crossing such a large ocean with the technology they had back then was impossible. So he decides to build a boat using only the tools and materials available at the time these migrations took place. And then he sailed that boat across the Pacific Ocean, nearly dying in the process, but ultimately making it to the Polynesian islands. Mr. Bibbs 350 answered with, Maurice Hilleman invented over 40 vaccines during his career in the pharmaceutical industry. In 1963 his oldest daughter caught the mumps. He cultured a sample from her, developed a vaccine, and injected it into his younger daughter. That vaccine is still in use and has saved millions of lives. In total, it's estimated that his work has saved 118 million lives globally. Nighthawk 37 answered with, Nikola Tesla was tasked with lighting up the World's Fair. But Thomas Edison wouldn't allow him to use any of his patents. So Tesla had to invent a new light bulb that didn't use any of Edison's patents, and could still have thousands made in time for the event. Tesla was definitely one of the most underrated geniuses of his time. I believe he died penniless in 1943. He chose to be penniless, and releasing Westinghouse from his patents only made it worse. He could have licensed his technology and die in a mansion in New York. With that being said, his name alone today is worth more than the great majority of millionaires of his era. Pyran Garlett answered with, Jon Snow, not that one, the father of epidemiology. No one believed him that the cholera outbreak in what is now Soho was because of a contaminated water pump. He broke it. They arrested him for vandalism and held him until the outbreak suddenly ended. He was also a pioneer when it came to anesthetics. Queen Victoria permitted him to put her under for the birth of 2 of her children. I visited his memorial in Brompton Cemetery a few years ago. He's right round the corner from Emmeline Pankhurst's grave. Both sites had fresh flowers on them. Evie answered with, Otis invented pretty much what we consider the modern elevator. Nobody was convinced it was safe, so he hoisted himself up extremely high and had somebody cut the cable with an axe to prove how confident he was that the elevator was safe regardless of almost worst case scenarios. Flame-broiled Hodor answered with, Cliff Stoll, the cuckoo's egg, noticed weird traffic on his university servers. No one believed him that there was any risk occurring. ended up uncovering a major hacking attempt to steal missile designs. And basically created internet security. I think it was missile designs, it's been a long time. Nova 3482 answered with. In 1888, Almond Brown Stroger, an undertaker, noticed he was losing a lot of business to the other undertaker in town. He found out that the other undertaker's wife was a telephone operator. And when she intercepted people asking to be connected to Stroger's funeral home, the operator would route the call to her husband's funeral home instead. 3 years later, Stroger patented the automatic teller exchange, a system which allowed telephone users to make calls without the need for human operators, single-handedly destroying an entire workforce. Imagine being P-off. You don't just get someone fired, but remove their job from existence entirely. Ohmsy answered with. James Clerk Maxwell was idolized by Einstein as being the father of modern physics. Not only did he formulate the classical theory of electromagnetic radiation, but just for poops and giggles he calculated exactly what Saturn's rings were made from using pure mathematics. It wasn't until Voyager 1 and 2 passed by and took photos in the early 80s did we get confirmation that Maxwell was right. He then calculated how to take a color photograph in 1855. This was then achieved in 1861 and is recognized as the first ever color photograph. Not Dave but answered with. Probably the time Nando Parado and Roberto Canessa decided they couldn't wait around any longer and legged it for 10 days across the Andes. With no warm clothes, climbing gear, or food except some scraps of their dead friends stuffed into a sock. They finally found someone out in the middle of nowhere. Sergio Catalan, who rode horseback all night and then took a bus to get some help. The mountain climbers had come from the wreckage of a crashed plane that everyone had been looking for over 2 months. They needed help for the other survivors who were injured and starving. They saved 14 of their friends. There's a book written about it by one of the survivors himself. Miracle in the Andes, 72 Days on the Mountain and My Long Trek Home by Nando Parado. I never watched the movie, but the book still gets me to this day. It is one of the most disturbing depictions of humans' ability to survive, even under the deadliest circumstances. A really humbling read, reminding us of our own fragility and how terrible fleeting everything truly is. Chaos Titanium answered with. A man who was a tractor mechanic company owner made a good chunk of money and bought a Ferrari. He felt that the car wasn't as good as it could be, and it wasn't very comfortable. So he brought his complaints all the way to Enzo Ferrari, the owner of the company. Enzo insulted the man, saying a mere tractor mechanic didn't know how to make a sports car. That sparked a rivalry that lasts to this day. That man was Ferruccio Lamborghini. Magica 03 answered with. When Julius Caesar decided to just up and effing march into Rome to declare himself the military leader. Or how about his Rhine bridges that he built in a few days to cross an army over a river? Then went back over and demolished it just because his army could. It's said the Germanic tribes saw his army do this and basically poop themselves. Imagine being some nomadic tribe and an invading force comes to a river, builds an entire bridge, crosses it, poops in your land, and then goes back home and destroys the entire bridge all in less than a week. Finance Corp Strategy answered with. The guy who started FedEx wrote a college paper about a nationwide overnight shipping company and got a C, started the company anyways. Later after he started it and it was struggling, he couldn't get a loan and the company was almost bankrupt. And he bet next week's payroll at the casino on roulette and won. Also got a Silver Star in the Vietnam War and now co-owns the Washington Redskins. The latter often viewed as the biggest failure in his life. E-Block answered with. Canadian soldier Leo Major and his friend Willie Arsenault were scouting a Dutch town called Zwolle that had been captured by Germans in World War II. On this scouting trip, the two had decided to liberate Zwolle together, but were spotted and Arsenault was killed. Major, enraged, killed 2 Germans while the rest fled. On the outskirts of the town, Major intercepted a vehicle, disarming the soldiers there. He told a French-speaking soldier that all the Canadian artillery would be firing on the town in the morning, and decidedly let the Nazi free to spread the rumor, even returning his weapon as a total alpha move. That night, Major decided to single-handedly liberate the town. Arming himself with many weapons, he made explosions and noise, making it sound like the entire Canadian army was there. Several times that night, Major went back and forth from Zvala to the Canadian base, taking 8 to 10 German prisoners each time. At one point, Major located the Gestapo, high-ranking Nazis, headquarters and raided it himself. He killed several SS officers and the rest fled. By morning, Major discovered that the Germans who had taken Zvala had entirely retreated. I should also mention that Major was a sniper, who had only one eye from a phosphorus grenade explosion years prior, and remained in the military because he insisted he only needed one eye to aim his weapon, and that to him, he looked like a pirate. The Dutch town of Zvala was liberated by a one-eyed sniper. He has several other legendary acts, but this to me was his best. Katyusha answered with, closest I can think of is Erwin Rommel during the Blitzkrieg, seeing an opportunity to make an exploit and instead of waiting said F it, and charged 200 miles into French territory. Dawson 282 answered with, Metallica fired Dave Mustaine 1983, because he was sort of a control freak, and wanted to take the band in a more prog/jazz metal direction. He was also abusing drugs and was known for violent behavior at the time. He went off and created his own band Megadeth. And over the next 30 plus years he sold millions of albums and toured the whole world writing and controlling pretty much everything he's ever wanted. It seems they've all now patched things up. Dude is an absolute genius beast of a guitarist and songwriter. Also, when guitarist Hillel Slovak died, 1988. John Frusciante was a 19-year-old kid and a huge fan of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. He was heartbroken and didn't want to see the end of his favorite band, so he went and auditioned to play lead guitar. He got the gig, helped take them to the top of the charts. The rest is history. Today he's considered one of the greatest rock guitarists out there. Hillray answered with, Leonid Rogozov removing his own appendix, or Inés Ramirez Perez doing her own C-section. Rogozov was a Dr. Perez, a poor Mexican woman. And finally, Half Double Pearl answered with, I remember reading a story about a woman, possibly stuck on a boat, who was forced to do her own C-section and stitched herself back up with fishing line. I was in middle school, so it was in the late 90s. But I can't find a news story with some quick Googling. I remember it vividly, because the article mentioned that her stitches to close herself up were praised by the doctors. I had a proper C-section 9 months ago and couldn't even imagine. Well, there you have it. A perfectly great question answered by a bunch of fine and honorable citizens. Help support this channel by smashing the like and subscribe buttons. And hit that silly little bell as well to ensure you get the latest videos as they come out. Fred is always finding stuff for me to post regularly. So this is Derek signing off. Thanks for watching. Good grief, it sounds like Fred is out of his pen again. I think he found more drama for me to share with you. See you soon.